Hello everyone, and this is Ryan the Raptor. Now this is the C1 Crs, and it really is a device which doesn't have that many uses outside of just maybe very specific occasions, and I'll explain what those are in a little later bit. But first let's talk about the device. Now, the device is a small little mono Bluetooth earpiece powered by a 40 mAh battery along with Bluetooth 4.0, and is covered in this matte plastic, like this rubberized matte plastic material, which also, well, is the same material used for the charging dock. Now, other things you get with the device along with the charging dock is this little extra pin, which this is the only honest use I could find out of it. There are other things I could think of, probably attaching it to an article of clothing, maybe to a bag, but honestly it isn't something I personally use. So you know, it is still great that they added it. Maybe for someone specifically they could find an area to use it. So yeah, that's great. You also get extra additional earpieces. I think you get two. Now, the device itself, well, it's actually a pretty interesting device because one, it's actually fairly well designed, really. First of all, the material, it's really a nice, soft, rubberized material, which means it's a lot more softer on your ears, and you almost will never ever notice, ever using the device, in the sense like placing it in your ear or like removing it. You will probably not notice it. Also, there are LED indicators of using the device. First is a charging indicator, which turns up red when you plug in the device for charging. And when you're pairing to Bluetooth, if you hold down on the big button that is on the side of the device, well, that starts to flash blue, indicating that it's ready to pair. And another thing which I might have forgot to mention about the charging dock is that they claim that there's an extra, well, sort of battery life to it, like it's a extra battery backup. Now, I'm not sure how true that is, because they claim it's around like 3 hours of working time, and additional to 1 or 2 hours if you use the charging dock. And so far I think that might be true, but there's no indicator that the charging dock's actually charging the device. There's no indicator, and I'm not really sure. I haven't really noticed any difference using the device with the charging dock or not in a day, so I'm not really sure if it works, but I maybe it did. I'm really not sure. But either way, let's move on. So we're going to talk next about the sound quality that the device is able to produce. Now, obviously, this is the most important part of any audio device. The sound is the most important bit. And, well, honestly, I didn't expect it to be, well, too great. But it obviously, well, exceeded my expectations, because this thing actually sounds really good for what it is, like, surprisingly. I mean, the first reason why I didn't think it would be so good is, one, because of the price. It's 1,100 rupees. You don't really expect anything out of a device like this, to be, to have a decent sound. And secondly, it's just generally everything else in the device is just much more well designed. That's kind of a common rule of thumb, is this: when a device, for the most part, has, a really decent design overall, for the most part the sound's not going to be that great, or one specific element's not going to be that great. I can attest to that with my House of Mali earphones, because, like, as much as they're well designed, well, they don't sound that great unless you use a proper, like, actual sound software to get them to sound right. Now, another thing is, like, you might be wondering, like, how are you going to use this device for for listening to music, right? I mean, it's only one earphone or one, like, earpiece, right? Now, that's the thing. Like, you might think that it would sound really off. Like, when you pull out an earphone, when you're listening to music, it obviously sounds a little off. But over here, since it's not a stereo, like, earphone, it's literally all being channeled, like, through mono, through one earpiece, it actually sounds really good. Like, you can get the full effect of using, let's just say, headphones or earphones through this little device. And I'd say probably over the use of a couple of hours, I was able to actually adjust to it a lot more quicker. So I'd say, like, just give it a day or two and you'll be perfectly fine, and you probably wouldn't even notice that you're using just a mono earpiece. Now next, let's talk about battery and connectivity. First, let's talk about connectivity. So it actually has a fairly decent range. I'd say about like 10 meters in a free area. So I'd say you can use it on one side of the room to the other without really any interruption in, probably the music you're listening to. But that being said, when the battery slowly does start to drop, when there are other objects in the way, maybe like like some furniture, maybe someone just like walking through, it can interrupt it like rather like like very often. I mean, it's kind of weird, but it does do really well at longer ranges, like surprisingly well. But again, like with any sort of disturbance in the field, like if someone is moving around, that can really mess things up. So I'd say just keep the device or your phone or whatever device you're using to pair with this just on you at most times so that it wouldn't really get interrupted. Alright, now before the video goes on, I'm going to be using just gameplay footage in the background, mainly because there's not really a lot you can film with this device, like for angles and stuff, so rather than just putting it next to every single thing in my house, I'd rather just decide to just use gameplay, because I think you have an idea of, well, the device itself and how it works. So yeah, I'm not lazy, I just can't think of anything. So, some of you guys who may own bikes, you might have thought that this device would be great for when, you're going out for a, like a little ride, and you could just pop this in, listen to music, and since it's only 1 year, you can still have the other, more focused on anything else. And also you may, and as well as you might have considered even using it for probably taking calls while you're driving, because this does have a mic, I think I forgot to mention. But unfortunately, when driving is kind of the worst time to use it, because the interruption is absolutely bad. Like the disturbance is the worst you can get when you're in a moving vehicle. Now, since I don't have a bike, I for the most part either travel by a taxi or by an auto. Well, there's quite a lot of disturbance, especially when you reach around like maybe the 50% battery mark. That's when things get really, well, almost unbearable. Like, it's almost unusable. So yeah, I guess keep that in mind. But you can probably use this for jogging. But again, I'd say it's kind of pointless, really. I mean, for jogging, I'd say for the most part just use regular earphones. Like, this thing can be useful if you're probably in an area which isn't so safe to be using 2 earphones. Maybe just, an area of constant traffic. Maybe you do need to watch your, your back every now and then. So maybe only there would I see it being useful. But honestly, if it only gives like around, let's say, a hypothetical of like 4 hours, in general, I don't see it as being too much use. Now finally, I'm just gonna give my personal opinion on the device and what I really use it for. Now personally, I use it, to be absolutely honest, in class actually. When in class, especially when at times you can't really always like use earphones, right? Some teachers are cool, some of them aren't. And in general, this is a lot more convenient because again, with earphones, you have to keep on like untangling them, find a comfortable position to sit in. But honestly, this is the most easiest I can find, especially during recess. Just pull this out, pop it in the ear, and just do whatever I want to do, right? There's no hassle, there's no time wasted, and generally it is really useful because again, people will be around, they'll be talking to me, classmates and all that, and this really is a good way of being in that entire system and not kind of locking yourself out. And that's really the main reason I think this is a useful device. And really, I think that's the only reason you should ever consider this device is in that kind of situation, probably in a work environment or probably in a school environment. In all honesty, there is no other like actual practical situation where, this could be useful. Now, even if you were to use it at home, maybe like doing some work around the house, even then, like, it can be useful, but considering how long it really works, like for only a couple of hours, maybe not the best thing. But again, with that being said, for what it can do, I'd say it does a great job. I mean, the battery, well, it actually does fairly good. I mean, it lasts me, as I said previously, I think around 4 to 5 hours. It's perfect for a full day. And so, well, I think the device is fairly good for what it can do, but if you really want, I guess, a overall better experience, I'd say like probably get an actual like Bluetooth ear set, like earphones, not like just this, because this again, it's for the very specific use is probably using it in class or probably in a crowded environment where you need to, I guess, be more, I guess, active. Only then would I see any use out of this. But well, with that being said, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you liked the video, like it. If you disliked it, dislike it. And if you have any questions about the product itself, go ahead and leave them in the comments below. And I will see all you guys later.